At 3:47 p.m. Jerusalem time, the world changed, and almost no one noticed. A strange stillness swept through the old city. Then came a sound like ancient thunder, shaking stone. Tourists stopped mid-sentence, phones raised as 24 men in linen robes stepped onto the Temple Mount. Not actors, not reenactors, priests, real ones, their line traced back to Aaron himself. They carried vessels that haven't touched sunlight in 2,000 years, and when the trumpets blazed, the air seemed to split between heaven and earth. Media cameras turned away, politicians blinked. Because this wasn't politics, this was prophecy awakening. Something sacred just restarted in Jerusalem, and the echo is still rolling across the desert night. But the moment they lifted those silver horns, something else moved too, something no one expected. Before we continue, subscribe for more discoveries where faith meets archaeology, and don't forget to turn on notifications for our next revelation from the Holy Land. News desks brushed it off as a local gathering, but eyewitnesses say the light itself seemed to bend around them. The crowd felt it first, the vibration underfoot, as if the old stones were remembering their purpose. I tracked the footage frame by frame. Every angle confirmed the same anomaly. No media lights, no live broadcast, just low whispers and tear-streaked faces. Behind the priests, sealed crates waited, inscribed in Hebrew, marked sacred use only. No one outside authorized circles knows what rests inside them. While the city went on with traffic and tour buses, a ceremony older than empires unfolded behind thin ropes of police tape. And when the final note of that trumpet faded, the silence that followed didn't end it. It announced the next stage. They appeared without announcement. No press release, no political escort. Just 24 figures climbing the outer ramp as prayers still floated in the heat. Each step sounded deliberate, echoing through the courtyard like a countdown. Every eyewitness described the same thing. Calm faces, hands steady, eyes fixed where the first temple once stood. They weren't tourists in costume. Genealogists confirm their bloodline links back to the first priests of Israel. The linen shimmered pale against the stone, belts crossed with colors almost lost to museums. A shift you could feel, like history inhaling after a long night. Then one of them lifted a silver trumpet shaped to ancient measurements. The air tensed. People reached for cameras. And when that first breath filled the horn, Jerusalem didn't just hear it. It felt it. The first blast tore through the air like lightning made of sound. Birds lifted at once. Tourists forgot to breathe. Even the guards lowered their radios. The trumpet's cry ricocheted across the courtyard, bouncing between domes and walls until it seemed the city itself was singing. It wasn't music, it was memory. Every echo carried something older than language, like the mountain answering back after 2,000 years of silence. Some said the ground trembled. Others felt pressure in their chest, as though the wind itself insisted they listen. And then, dead hush. No pigeons, no sirens. Just stillness so thick it felt alive. Those who stood there swear they heard another tone inside the silence. Soft, low, distant, coming from beneath the mount itself. And that's when fear began to eclipse wonder. That single note was more than ceremony. It was a signal. For those who know the old prophecies, the moment a priestly trumpet sounds again over the mount marks a turning of history's gears. Centuries of waiting, exile and prayer compressed into a single breath of silver. Scholars once said the instruments and lineage were lost, yet here they stood, alive, verified, and echoing through a modern skyline. It wasn't nostalgia, it was activation. Some in the crowd wept, some recorded, others simply stared, realizing they were inside a verse they'd only read. Because if that sound truly returned, then everything written to follow it is already in motion. And if that's true, the next event predicted on that same timeline is far closer than anyone admits. It looked spontaneous, but witnesses now say this moment was decades in the making. Private workshops in Jerusalem, vaults of blueprints, whispers of research teams rebuilding every vessel to exact ancient scale. Nothing improvised, every thread, every toll measured by scripture and mathematics. A generation trained quietly in the hills, learning motions no one has practiced since Rome's legions tore the temple down. The garments, the trumpets, even the oil, crafted under lock and ritual. You can trace receipts across 36 years, each step pulling prophecy from museum glass into living hands. Then you see why officials tried to keep cameras back. This wasn't performance, it was resumption. And just beyond the ritual perimeter, sealed in crimson cloth, waited the element no one expected to see alive again. When the cloth was unwrapped, the crowd tilted forward in near disbelief. Inside lay the proof of years of searching, a flawless red calf, raised under watch, untouched by blemish. Whispers rippled. Could it be the one? In ancient law, this animal's ashes opened the path back to temple cleansing, a ritual that vanished 2 millennia ago. Now it stood breathing before them, its own existence a ticking fuse. Farmers, geneticists, and priests had guarded it in secret fields, waiting until it reached the right age, neither too young nor too old. They said the window had opened, the timing was perfect, the prophecy alive. Some cheered, others trembled, because if that sacrifice happens, nothing separates preparation from fulfillment. And that's when people began whispering about what that would make possible next. By nightfall, the city felt different. Crowds kept returning to the mount, not for spectacle, but because something inside them pulled there. Young soldiers left shifts, still in uniform, standing shoulder to shoulder with elders reciting prayers that hadn't been heard aloud in lifetimes. It wasn't organized, it was instinct, an awakening spreading faster than officials could record. Parents told children, "Remember this day. You'll tell your grandchildren where you stood." One reporter said the air felt charged, like standing near the engine of history. That sense of belonging, of prophecy unfolding through ordinary people, ran through the streets like current. But even as hope rose, a quiet dread surfaced too, because the same texts that speak of renewal also warned what must appear right before redemption. Hope never walks alone. Its shadow arrived the same night. Across screens in cafes, debates burned. Does this fulfill promise or invite peril? Leaders argued over security, while scholars warned that prophecy's next chapter includes a rival power stepping onto the same stage. If the sacred service returns, then the opposing force, prophesied to stand inside it, must also draw near. Every victory, scripture says, casts the outline of its trial. Priests talk about purity. Analysts talk about politics. Yet under both conversations hums one question. Who will claim that temple when it finally rises? Because the texts mention a figure who pretends to be peace, and if the trumpet began the countdown, that false peace could be next. Some call it preparation. Others quietly call it warning. Midnight draped the city, but the sound of those trumpets still pulsed through the stones. Every alley carried a faint metallic hum, as if Jerusalem itself were remembering lines of an unfinished hymn. The priest had vanished back into the night, leaving only footprints and a vibration in the air. Drones circled, streetlights flickered, and witnesses said the silence between echoes felt heavier than the sound itself. Somewhere deep inside the mount, sensors caught a new frequency, a slow, measured rhythm no one could explain. Officials called it feedback, believers called it a heartbeat. Either way, tomorrow's sunrise will fall on a different world. Because after 20 centuries of waiting, something sacred has started breathing again. And the next sound may not come from Earth at all.